All right. Thank you, colleagues, for coming through to the second round of our webinar series. Last week, we opened up the webinar series by starting off with the process of SDF registration. So today's session is more like a continuation of the process once a new SDF has registered. And today it's more of our building on top of last week's presentation. So today we are going on to the second step of some of the core functions that an SDF does perform on the NSDMS, which is the mandatory grant submission. We will be obviously building on this series going through, and our next webinar is going to be next week, Thursday, where a registration link will also be issued. But maybe just a bit of a background of what we'll be covering today. The first item is just the list of the webinar series that we are going to be having. There is a slight date change where we have moved our Tuesday sessions to every week Thursday, so that we keep the consistency. And you will see that some of the dates still reflect the ones that we had shown last week, but there is a change, and we will continuously just ensure that the link does go out in time on our socials and also on the website. And then number two is obviously the process that we are gathered here for today, which is the mandatory grant submission process, which then, if time allows, because we've got up until 10, we will open up the session for any comments or question, and then we head right through to closure. Just as I mentioned, that this is our upcoming series. We are currently on the second webinar episode of the series. The next one is obviously going to be DG application. And then the one after that is going to be now focusing on some of the ETQA processes, such as assessor and moderator registration application. We will be covering that as well. But for today, we are on the mandatory grant application. This is just a continuation. So we've got a schedule that runs up until April, with obviously the plan that we're going to have this webinar sessions or series every quarter, just so that we keep the momentum going. Currently, we are in our grant season. There is a mandatory grant window that's open, closing in April. So the focus was to start with that because we are in the grant season. But as we proceed, we'll obviously reprioritize some of the functions that occur seasonally, such as the mandatory grant and the discretionary grant process. But there are those processes that do take place throughout the year. Now, just a bit of more background on today's process. So today's process, as I had mentioned, it is the mandatory grant submission process, where we've got a number of prerequisites that we'll be obviously covering in today's session. One, as I mentioned, is that one of the prerequisites is that you've registered as an SDF. Number two is that you linked to a MERSITA levy paying company. This is quite important because only MERSITA levy paying companies are enabled to submit their mandatory grants to the MERSITA, because it's linked to obviously levy contributions and the SARS files and the likes of that information. So if you're non-levy paying to the MERSITA, you will not be eligible to submit a mandatory grant, but you will be able to submit a discretionary grant. This now obviously is next week's episode, but I just wanted to emphasize those first 2 points there. So last week, as I said, we covered the process of registering as an SDF and registering as a company. So we are just kicking off from that basis as well. And then number 3 and number 4 is, of course, some documentations that you will need if you're going to be submitting mandatory grants submissions for the first time, which is obviously your training committee training documents. This is like attendance registers of training that had taken place. This is if you did have any training that takes place, which will be covered by our annual training report form. The next one is, of course, bank details documentation. This is quite critical. And one of our presenters today will take you through the process. And as she's taking you through the process, I will come back to reemphasize the importance of those documents. Now, the banking details is, of course, of quite importance because that's the information you're going to be using to obviously pay your levies back based on the SARS deductibles and the function that SARS does. And we'll be paying that every month, every 2 months, every quarter. There is a process that kicks off from our finance team. So the importance of the banking details information is that it's obviously related to money. Now, when we get to that process, I will also talk about some of the internal processes that we do, because it is quite a rigorous two-step process in terms of approval of banking details information. But we will get to it as the session proceeds. And with that, that is the background and the summary of today's session. I hope that you enjoy it. Lesego, are we ready to go? Lesego is going to be our presenter for today. And I would also just want colleagues to note that we will be, during the course of this session, we are open to taking question and answers. There is a section on the chat called the Q&A. And we'd obviously want to get some feedback in terms of the effectiveness of this session by colleagues assisting us with a survey, a short survey. It's only 4 questions long. And this helps us improve and also ensures that we cover the right topics. But during the session, if you do have any questions, Lesego is not alone. She is joined by her fellow colleagues who will be moderating the chats and be assisting you with any questions throughout the session. But should we not be able to answer your question, there is a dedicated email that we have also pasted in the Q&A, which is mis@support.mersita, where we will be able to deal with your individual challenges, whether be it registering as an SDF for the first time, inability to upload certain documents, an error or an issue that you're encountering on the system during the process of you submitting your mandatory grants. That email is manned by a team that will be able to assist and also give you feedback. So on that note, I would like to hand over to Lesego if we are ready to go so that we can start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley, and good morning, everyone. My name is Lesego, and of course, we are ready then to proceed with the session.
Thank you.
Thank you. So from last week's session, we managed that to show everybody the process of registering as an SDF. For today, we are obviously continuing with the MG application. So for the MG application, we still continue from using the NSDMS system, last week's landing page. So I'm going to be logging in as a primary SDF to continue that process. Okay. Something is not right with my network. Just a minute, colleagues.
Okay, we're just sorting out a bit of network difficulties. We'll be shortly back. Hi, Lisero, can you refresh and then relog on again?
And yes, let me just relog now. There we go. Thank you. So, okay, this is the primary SCF who is now logged in for the company Met Holdings. So we are proceeding from the company. For you to be able to capture or to initiate a grant, please do note, very important, that you won't be able to proceed without ensuring that under the company details, you have all information captured. So in this case, we just need to verify and ensure that we have all the banking details up to date. So I'm going to be clean. Okay. Yeah, my system is very slow, but we just have to work with it. All right, there we go. So for us to be able to update any information on the company details, we need to ensure that we have the relevant company contact person, someone who's responsible for the banking details. So in this case, I'm going to be adding a new contact person who's obviously going to be responsible for the banking details. Okay, so yeah, so let's just upload a new person. So it's looking for the passport number. Here's the company contact passport number that I'm going to be adding. It's okay. Okay, so the name, sorry about that, it's Oli and Met. The email, it's test4@messenger.com. Right. Test4@messenger.com. All right, the company contact, we are saying the person is responsible as an CFO, which is a finance manager for the company. And we are adding the person to the training committee. They are actually responsible for the banking details confirmation. So I'm submitting the user.
All right. As Liseko is submitting the user, the importance of this section is that any banking details changes or updates that is done by the SDF will need to be approved first by the person responsible for the banking details. So it's quite critical that the person that's responsible for finance or the banking details confirmation is someone that is obviously active in the company throughout. In certain instances, we have had incidences where the SDF chooses another SDF who's a contract SDF, and then in future they leave the company. Now, with the new SDFs coming, they might not have already known the process or the responsibilities. So that causes a bit of an issue on our end. And then we need to obviously update those details through the SDF contacting us. I do note a hand, but Clement, if possible, can you pose the questions on the Q&A? and then one of our moderators will assist. And time allowing, we will obviously open up in the last a couple of minutes for live questions and answers. Thank you. You can proceed, Lesego.
Okay, thank you so much, Stan. So for under the company contact person, you do have an option to either update if there's someone who's already existing. You are able to click on this icon. It's an update icon. And when you select, it will allow you to obviously update any details. Should you want to change maybe the company contact type, the system will allow you to change the company contact type as well. So once this user has been updated, we need to now make sure that the person is now been approved. So I will log in as Polymed. Okay, I'm going to proceed first with the banking details. Yes, I'm going to proceed with the banking details because now we have ensured that we've got a person who's now responsible for that session. So for me to do that, I'm going to be clicking on the banking name, selecting the bank that you are obviously using, the bank account, and it's looking for the account name. It's Met Holdings. And moving forward, it's looking for the branch code. When you get to the documents, very important, Stanley had already mentioned about the documentation that needs to be populated there. Here is our confirmation, the banking confirmation letter. And you need to then now populate and upload the document for the confirmation of account as well. So I've uploaded all the document under the banking details. When you look at this session, you do have an option to click on the remittance advice, which will obviously give you a history in terms of the banking details. Any changes that was done initially, this keeps track, and even the information in terms of the funding and amounts as well. So I'm going to click on the submit button. It's asked you for a second confirmation. Are you sure you want to submit the banking details? When you are sure with the details, you are going to proceed. So once you clicked on the submit button, you will see the red highlighted note that specifies that they are pending for approval. So this is a point where now the banking task will then go through to our internal people for review and for approvals. Okay, so here is, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Lisa, on that one. So this is one of this is the start of the phase. It's a 3-step phase. The first phase is, of course, is the task then obviously routing to the person that was allocated the responsibility for banking details, which is now the contact type that Lesego previously captured. The task is going to go to that person. He or she will then need to obviously approve the banking details as the first step verification to say the banking details captured by the SDF match what the banking details actually are for the company. That's one. And then it hits an internal process where now our administration team just verifies the documents as well, because then after that second verification, it's going to go to our finance team, who then have the final approval of the banking details, which then will then be pushed through to our financial system. So it is quite important that, you know, the information is as accurate as possible, as we do have another verification step on our banking platform to kind of obviously verify the banking details to see if everything is in line and matches as to what was submitted by the SDF. Back to you, Lesego. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Proceeding forward, we now have to log in as the company contact who's now responsible, which is this person here. And Polly met to be able to get the banking task for approvals. Okay. So Polly will log in, and because it's the first time Polly logging into the system, it has to tell us, yes, it's going to give him the POPI Act, the consent to submit. Then once they're happy with this one, that's when they set on the password that would want to use moving continuously for daily purposes. Okay. All right. Okay, sorry about that. So resetting of. Okay, there we go. There we go. So here's the new user, Polymed. So Polymed, if you look at it, she's got the task now on the outstanding task on their dashboard. So they need to view, and what they're doing, as the person who confirms the banking details, they have to obviously review the documents. And when they are happy with viewing of documentations, that's when now they can approve. There are options, so I'm not going to reject, but they do have an option to say, no, we're not happy with this document. We are not sure with what the primary SDF has loaded. So they still have an opportunity to say, no, let's reject. This does not look correct. So in this case, I'm going to be approving. And once the approval has been done, there we go. I'm going to then go back to the primary SDF.
Okay.
And
Whilst,
proceed.
yeah,
Yes.
whilst Lesego is logging in, colleagues, as earlier highlighted, that it's a three-step verification. So the first step has been completed. It now obviously hits our internal administration team for them to obviously activate or approve the banking details. Now, the internal two-step process is now taking place. We are doing that in the background as we speak, so Lesego can then continue with applying for the mandatory grant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Moving forward, we do have the banking details that have so they are still pending, which is okay. But once the application has been done, then the system will allow you to obviously continue with the grant application. So when you click on the grant application, you see your company is already populated there because it's active and the banking details are available. So in a case where the banking details are not yet loaded, you will have a message, red highlighted message here to say you can't initiate a grant. You need to confirm the banking details. So in this case, when you click on the edit, here's our button. So you won't be able to get the button if the banking details are not yet have not yet been updated. So you click on this. Have you double checked all the relevant company information? This is what the system is asking you. It's basically enforcing you the company detail, the banking details, and the employment data. So it's a yes. And our financial year is 2025. The grant type is MG. So you are creating the grant. Once it's open, it's populated, it shows the status. Be aware of the grant status that it usually populates here. So in this case, you do have options where you have applied for extension. It will show you that you have applied for extension. If there was some appeal, it will still show you. In this case, it's a new application. We're still on time. So clicking on the edit, it's confirming. Okay. So the system here, it says that because on the company management, when you go back on the company details here under company information, when you scroll down, here is a question that enforces. So it says, does a recognition agreement exist between the company organization and the labor? So because we speculated that it's a yes, that means now we have to ensure that under company context, we do have a labor. Under the SDF, we do have a labor SDF, someone who is a labor SDF. So in this case, it's only the primary. So we are forced to add that labor. We do have a recognition. So here's a labor SDF documentation, passport. Okay. So I'm going to log in as a labor with these details. Okay. So for labor, here is the passport number. Submit. Okay, there we go. So we want to add the SDF to be part of the training committee. It's a yes. And the SDF type, that's where now we need to specify it's a labor and a union SDF. Then we click on the submit button. So the reason why the information was already populated is because of this person, the person that I'm adding as a labor, had already registered on the system. So that's why it auto-populated all the details here. So I'm just going to submit, looking for the cell numbers, which are a mandatory field, as well as the telephone numbers as well. There we go. So we do have our labor SDF. Back to the grant application. We click on the edit view, continuing with the edit, proceeding with the details. Okay. So under company data, you can see that the company data had pulled from the company details, as well as the employment data had already pulled from the company information details. So we're moving forward. We are getting to the skills requirements here. So it's asking you if you have any, do you have any hard to fill any vacancies in the past years? It can be a yes. And I'm just going to add, so I'm just going to say the total vacancies that you had in the previous years was just 1 and 1. Then in which field? In the finance officer. Okay. All right. Finance manager. We have done that. We had that challenge in the previous years. That's basically what we're saying. And under the skills gap, it's asking you to say, do you keep track of the skills gap in your organization? It's important to keep track of the skills gap that you are having in the organization. If it's a yes, then it asks you to track those skills gaps. So here you are just identifying the gaps that you're having challenges with. So I'm going to select, and the system tells you that the top 3 ensure that for every specialty you do have that top 3 selected, because if it's not 3 in any of the fields, then the system is not going to allow you to do submission on this one. So you need to ensure that you forever have 3 for each specialty, and the system will then allow you to proceed. Okay. So indicate the top 3 reasons why. It's still asking for the same thing. So either there were lack of or there's a new technology. Why are you having challenges with those? Supply the reasons. So basically you are just supplying the reasons. Why are you having those challenges with doing the skills gap in the previous years? If you look at it, it gives you a hint to say, is it lack of relevant qualification? Is it lack of experience? Is it the new technology arising, which is causing for those reasons? Here you just specify, it forces you to select 3, then it says submit completed. Then once you are done with this one, that's when you get to a point on the ATR form. So your annual training report, basically, it's where you have to complete the training that was captured in the previous. So the first thing that you come across, it says here, have you completed any training in the current reporting period? If it's a yes, depending. If you are is a new company that is applying for the first time, maybe you have done any reporting, you do indicate you've done it. If it's a no, then you just say no. In this case, I'll just say yes. And it's asking again, have you deviated from the work skills plan? If it's a no, you specify it's a no. If yes, then you proceed with that information. So I'm going to be proceeding here. And it's looking for the passport. There. We were on somewhere here. The gender.
Whilst
Yes.
Lesego is completing this form, colleagues, I'd just like to highlight the importance of the skills gaps form. This allows MERSITA and the SSP department to kind of obviously come up with the scarce and critical skills. You remember in the past, if you have been an SDF before, it was 2 separate forms where you'd have to capture your scarce and critical skills. Now that was combined with obviously the new DHEAD template in terms of capturing skills gaps. So that enables the SSP to kind of obviously highlight critical skills or scarce skills, depending on whatever the reasons are. It might be technology. I'm sure you saw that. Maybe there's an emerging technology that's only available in maybe the Western Cape, but it's not available in Limpopo as an example. Or you might have an influx of electricians in Mpumalanga, but a shortage in the Free State. So this kind of helps in terms of the planning of where some of the funding to address the scarce and critical skills within the sector are going to be focused on. I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Lesego, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Stan. And here it's asking for your training investment. You just specify the amount and you are able to save it here. So for these purpose, we are going to just capture one field, and we will obviously come with a separate session where we'll be showing you how to upload the CSV uploads. If you're having a bulk of the ATR for your reports, we'll be having another session to cater for that one. So in this case, I'm just going to proceed with this one. So I've saved my ATR and I have submitted, and happiness. Moving to the next page. So if you look at it, anything that is on the annual training report, it pulls under the pivotal training report as well. So please do note that here you don't have to add anything. It's all the report, anything that was loaded under here, it should pull through under your pivotal report, as well as the training with the ETQAs. If you are training something that is not in line with MERSITA, then it pulls again on the training with the ETQAs here. So for workplace skills plan, it's asking you to indicate whether you have planned training in line with the employment equity plan. If it's a yes, it's a yes. Then moving forward, you do have an option to say no, it's not really in line with the ETQ plan. Then here I'm going to add just another record so that we proceed with the WSP as well. Nationality, we use the passport. Then it's looking for the employment status. Are you employed? These are the type of things that you need to specify, and the interventions, of course, because what is it that you are training? Is it with MESITA or is it with the other SITAs? You do have an option to specify which SITAs are you linked with. A provider type, is it a public, a private, or it's just an employer? You proceed. Then it's looking for the SAQA code. There we go. So all the mandatory fields are important. Ensure that when you see the asterisks, it is a mandatory field. You have to fill that information. You click on the submit. Okay, it's looking for the estimated costs. I missed that, as well as the date here. There we go. Okay. So moving forward, you do have an option to upload as the CSV bulk. So we are going to have a separate session for the uploading of CSV. For the purpose of time, we're just covering the workflow of initiating a grant for today. And when you look at it, the WSP, it pulls through to your pivotal plan as well. And when you get to the requirement documentations, here is looking for the training minutes that you had initially. So there we go. These are the training minutes. So these are mandatory documentations. You won't be able to submit. It's actually 3 training minutes, 1 training minutes 2, and number 3 is the deviation motivation. So those ones are very essentials. It won't allow, the system won't allow you to do sign off without completing these 3 documentations, but you can have this one as well for the explanation as well. Okay, so for evidence, I'm not going to upload anything further. I'm just going to go to my sign off page. When you get to your sign off tab, you do have an option because you're a primary SDF, then it's asking you to say that, are you confirming that you are completing the sign off? Because once you've done your sign off, then it's going to be, the system is not going to allow you to do some edits in any of the forms that you had initially been submitted. So you need to ensure that by the time you submit your sign off, every detail is correct and you are happy with the information. So you click on this submit and it pops out a big one to verify that you're acknowledging that you understand the grant policy and that for any information, you are liable for the information that you are submitting. So once you have submitted the sign off, the system will then show that the task is no longer on you. So if you look at it, we had a task on the dashboard, we had the edit under MG, now it's no longer with us. So this is the part where now MESITA will have to then do the review. And okay, before to MESITA, no, the labor, because we've got 2 people, we have the labor that has to do the signing off as well. Yes. I'm gonna log in as a labor.
Okay. Whilst Lesego is logging in as the labor, we want to just also clarify that for companies that have got 1 to 49 employees that will be classified as small companies, it is not a requirement for those companies to have recognized labor within their setup. Although it's not a requirement, we do note that some small organizations do have recognized labor agreements. And once that has been ticked off under your company profile, which Lesego had earlier touched on to say that's a determining kind of parameter that will then trigger a requirement for your labor SDF to sign off as part of the mandatory grant submissions. But for medium to large size companies, these are companies that have got 50 to 149, that's the medium ones. The recognized labor agreement is required as part of your mandatory grant submission. For companies that are large, which is 150 and above, they are also required, and it's a compulsory that they do have a labor representative available. Back to you, Lesego. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Stan. So our labor SDF has signed or has logged in, and when you look at the dashboard, they do have an outstanding task that then specify that confirms that they have to edit and confirm everything. We click on the edit button, and they are able to view, of course, every information that the primary had initially loaded. When they're happy with all the relevant information, they get to the page where now they have to check in and then finalize their sign off as well. They're acknowledging that they understand the terms and conditions, clicking on the sign off as well. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to log in. You'll see that the MG is now hanging on a pending status for MG. So that this is the point where now the application goes through to Mesita for internal reviews, where they have to do their allocation and the awarding, and the communication as well will obviously come back. So when you look at here, grant application, and it shows you here's the grant status that confirms that there is a pending approval that is pending with our internal people. Thank you.
All right.
So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lesego, for covering that process. Colleagues, this would be the end of the submission process from the SDF side. However, there are obviously two key processes that can take place depending on the outcome, which we're not going to cover in today's session, but I'm just going to highlight. So once the mandatory grant has been submitted, it then obviously goes through a verification process where the documents are reviewed, the information is compared to what the documents are saying. Then there's obviously internal recommendations. Now, the recommendations can be recommendations for approval, prompted from, of course, an acknowledgement of receipt first, which is what this is showing. So you'll get your letter to say you've submitted, and then the process starts. Now, post the verification of your submission, then there's obviously different outcomes that can come out of it. There might be a recommendation for the application to be rejected for whatever reasons based on the contents of the submission. If that's the case, SDFs do have a dispute process that they can follow. But if everything goes well, then your mandatory grant is then approved. What this then does, it obviously enables the participating company to then obviously be eligible to receive some of the rebates in terms of their levy contributions. And then that's the end of the mandatory grant cycle in terms of submissions. We did make quite some good time. So we do have about 15 minutes just to take obviously some live questions. If people can just raise their hands, and then we'll go through the question. We've already got one hand up. I'll mute your mic. You ask a question, we'll mute it again. So let's just maybe open for questions. I'm just going to go through the chats there. We've got Sune. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Clement, and then Odwa. And then we'll open up again for another round. Sune, you can unmute your mic and then ask your question. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Stanley. Okay, so I heard Lesego said we'll have another session for the actual CSV uploads. Can you just advise when that session will be? And also, if at all possible, could we please have an email address of Lesego? Because we've already tried to start uploading CSV templates and we're getting errors. Now, what we've learned from past experience over the many years working on NSDMS is that the error it gives you is not always the actual error. Okay, it's not really the reason why the template isn't uploading. So currently we're getting an error related to OFO codes. We are using the 2021 OFO code version. So that's definitely not the reason, but there might be something else wrong with our uploads template. So if we can maybe please in the interim email Lesego, if that would be allowed, to just have a look at what we're doing wrong, we'll highly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem, Sune. We will obviously have that session quite soon. It's just that we didn't have enough time just to plan or include it in today's session. So just maybe in terms of the email, Lesego is available, and also other colleagues that do support Lesego in terms of issues. So if you email to MIS support, either Lesego or one of the capable team members will pick up your issue and then take it forward. So this is also just available to anyone that might be having other issues with the mandatory grant process. So you can use that. I have placed it in the Q&A. We'll just repaste it again, because as the chats come in, it might move down the ladder a bit. So it is there. Colleagues can interact with us through that. And then we've got Clement. You can come through. Hi, Clement. Can you hear me? We'll come back to
Okay.
Clement.
Nice, then I
Yes.
think you.
No
Okay.
problem. I'm sorted out now. Hi,
Oh, you
Lesego
sorted?
Stan. Yes, yes.
Oh, okay,
It
no,
was
come
an
through.
issue of, yes, you had to unmute myself. I have just, it could be one question, but it represents the other tabs on the bank detail, on the company information detail. I just
Okay.
wanted to find out something. I've asked this popular question on the Q&A. If the bank detail for the company hasn't changed probably for the past 3 to 5 years, and the CFO is still the same person, is there a need to amend or update the banking details tab? This
No,
might be relevant
there
to the
is no
other.
need.
Okay.
I did respond, so you might have, yeah. So there's no need for the banking details to be amended or resubmitted again. It's only relevant when there's a change. Maybe you're moving from ABSA to Standard Bank, then you have to change, because that's where the financial transaction will take place.
Okay, thanks. So it's even the other tabs as well. You cannot just you can just I will say eliminate it without changing them.
Yeah, so such things as your company contacts, the employee number, if that has not changed over a couple of years, you don't need to then update. But in the case that there is movement in terms of you're no longer, let's say you were once a 52 employee company, but now you are 48, you have to update that, because then it has implications in terms of your requirements to have a recognized labor agreement in place. So depending on certain information, you update as you need to, and then that has a determining factor of what other requirements do follow. And then we move over to Otwa. Hi, Otwa, you can unmute and then come through.
Thank you. Thanks, Stanley. Morning, everyone. I have a question. I'm now an independent SDF. I used to work for Goodyear last year. So I've got this client. The company is very small, about 35 employees. If they don't have a labor agreement in place, is it a requirement for them to have a training committee? Because now there are no training minutes. For instance, that's my one question. Another one is they've got interns, and also their interns, they're just working, they're paying them a salary. Then do I include the salary as a training spend? Because I mean, for B purposes, that is the case. So I'm just trying to think, will that impact this side of things? Thank you.
All right. In terms of the training committee, Otto, I would like to forward that specific query to one of our central admin colleagues via the MIS support email, because there might be some detail that they will want to clarify in order to determine if you do need a training committee, depending on your company size. Okay. I do know that for the union, it has a bearing you know, as I explained. But for the training committee, if you can
Yes.
just pop us a mail there, we would then obviously refer you to the relevant people in terms of the technical detail around that. When it comes
Okay.
to, yeah,
So,
when
sorry,
it,
Stanley, for some reason, I can't even access the Q&A or the chat, so I don't see any email, anything that is posted there.
okay, I will flight the email on one of the slides. Let me just
Brilliant.
quickly do that whilst we, so that we don't have. Let me just do this. But yeah, in terms of the training, if you are having internships and you are paying the stipends and it doesn't come from any form of grant, then you can obviously then report that as part of your annual training, and the intervention type is obviously going to be what you call internship. So that can be
Yes.
classified as training if you are obviously footing the bill. And if it is coming from maybe a MERSITA funding, you can obviously report that as well. But if it's coming from your own training budget, that also does count as annual training because they are your employees to a certain extent. Let me just.
Sorry, Stanley, just to clarify, we only paying them a stipend, so that will form part of the training spend.
Okay, I'm not sure. There's the email there.
Am I okay?
I'm not sure if you can see it, but let me just.
Yes,
I'll
I can.
reshare it. Okay, I'll reshare it at the end because I just need to assist one of the moderators with the mics. But yeah, you can proceed, Odwa.
No, I'm covered. Thank you.
Okay, all right, not a problem. Thank you. We've got Katu. Hi, Katu, you can unmute your mic and come through. Hi, Katu. Okay. We will come back to Katu if we can then obviously have Kuku Nyembe. You can unmute and come through.
Okay. Hi, Stanley. Hi, everyone. Stanley, my question is on the labor SDF. So I've got a labor SDF because we've got a recognition in place. But now I already foresee a challenge because this person has been booked off on a long sick, will only return in June. Can I then get somebody else to sign on their behalf, or must I write a motivation or letter of some sort?
Okay. My question to you is, I want to find out, are you the primary SDF for the said organization?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what you will need to do in that case is you will have to add the company labor SDF and remove the old one. Where Lesego was showing us where you are able to update or edit, you can actually remove the current ill labor SDF and then add the new one. Then it will allow you then to obviously start the process of having the new person onboarded. And then by the time you submit, it's not going to go to the current ill SDF, it's going to go to the new one.
Yes, yes, yes. But then in terms of the minutes, because now we've already had all our minutes last year, remember, all our meetings rather last year. So the new labor STF won't be in any minutes, meaning that the old one will be on the minutes, but then the new one will be on the system, but not on the minutes. So I don't know if you get my challenge there.
Yeah, on that, because it's there's a bit of detail around that. If you can just maybe pop an email, and then we'll also circulate that to our central admin people to kind of assist in terms of possible evaluation issues where they say, this labor SDF signs off but is not on the minutes, it might cause problems. So I think if you can pop us an email, we will then obviously hook you up with the right people so that they can assist you with the detail before you click the submit button.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you, Stanley.
Not a problem. Thank you. We are gonna give Katu another shot before we go to Karen Moss. Katu, if you can unmute and come through, sir. Ma'am. Hi, Katu. Okay, we are gonna.
Hello? Hello?
Hi,
Stan?
there's a Katu on the guest, so.
Stan?
Yes, come through, Katu.
Yeah, I'm using Tracy's laptop here. Mine is greater.
Okay. You can proceed.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay. We'll just come back. We'll just come back again. Karen, you can unmute and then come through. Hi, Karen. Yeah. Hi, Karen. Hi, Karen. I see your mic is unmuted, but we can't hear you. I think our last two guests are having some challenges and we are on the last minute. So I'm just going to flight the MIS support email address so that colleagues can have a chance, obviously, to pose some of their specific issues, such as the detail around the training minutes, the SDF changes, and then, of course, the training. So I'm just going to flight it there. And then on that note, colleagues, it is 10 on my side. I would like to obviously just thank you once more for availing yourselves. And we have come to the end of the session, but the support does continue. So if you do have any further questions or points of clarity, please do reach out to us. We will come back to you in time. And we will also be publishing the recording of this session should colleagues want to have a further view to what we have covered today. Thank you so much to Lesego and the team. And then the session is closed. Have a lovely day further. Thank you, colleagues.